generally we'd trail them home with the tractor in a bale or something like that, and we had to actually get somebody behind them to bring them to come because they seemed to like it out there. They were content. We're a pretty low input operation, and we try to cut back on inputs and stuff. Our cattle aren't pampered and they're not poured, or we don't use any fly control wormer or anything like that. With some of our yearlings, after we weaned, we used some different type of tubs for protein. They all seemed to do something, but you never really knew how much. And then I kind of got away from everything because I thought, well, let's see if we can just get them by on nothing. And I don't know if that was such a good idea or not. It wasn't very long, and we decided, we had to do some things, and we couldn't run them probably as tough as we were running them. I have a great mentor network of friends. A lot of them are in the North Dakota Grazing Lands Coalition, and so a lot of us are doing these same type of things and thinking out of the box. And Riomax kind of came into the picture, and I'm always a bit of a skeptic. And I guess the first thing I kind of noticed is the consumption, and they weren't really, for lack of a better term, gulping it down. And I know our calves, which we always wean, here in December, they're confined more. I've noticed that they're really hanging in there when it comes to their hair coat and all that. And it may be the year, but they seem very content. Their consumption isn't out of this world, but you can kind of see that they're all by there or in there at some point in time if you're watching close enough. When we weaned this year, we had them started on Riomax already, and we never incurred any problems at all, and that's a bit rare, and so I attribute that to that. I think it does something, and again, I don't really understand the science behind it all. It aids in their digestion, and we manage holistically here, and so if we can limit those problems and do it with something that's relatively natural, if you will, it makes me feel good. Obviously, again, we run them pretty tough, and they're not pampered or anything, and when they can hold together, and our goal is to get them out to grass as early in the spring as possible, and if we can have them fit and looking good, but yet still sleek and all that, I'm all for it. When I'm feeding hay and stuff, we don't overfeed by any means. They seem to consume everything that we put in front of them, which is a good thing. When they were out grazing corn stalks and some stockpiled grass, they were really holding their condition well, and again, they seemed content. And we had some cattle too. When it got really cold, we kind of went out and gathered them up and to feed them, and they were out and about. They really didn't want to come home. They just liked being what they were doing, and generally we'd trail them home with the tractor in a bale or something like that, and we had to actually get somebody behind them to bring them to come, and we were more worried about the wind and the weather than anything, but they seemed to like it out there. They were content. Oh, it's huge. Anytime we can graze, obviously, and on a herd like ours, I think it came to about, $52,000 we saved grazing. And, it varies from year to year. Again, our goal is always to graze 365. It's money in our pocket. The winter feed costs are obviously the biggest expense for ranchers, farmers and ranchers here in the Northern Plains. We've known that for a long time, and if we can keep them out grazing on the land, we keep them away, and if we can throw some Riomax out there, or if that's going to help, sustain that and keep it going, I think that's a positive. So I had some sticker shock, there's no question. I still wonder, too, why it's got to cost what it does, but again, the effectiveness of it and things like that, I think is taking some of the edge off of that. But yeah, it's an initial sticker shock, but like I said, it goes away because to me it seems like it's been a real effective product.